going to call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the California Board of Optometry, California State Board of Optometry, I should say. And first we'll do a roll call to establish a quorum. I'm just going to go, starting from my left, actually. Actually, you know what? I'm going to read down the list. I'll read down the list, that's better. I am present, Madhu Chawla, Donna Burke.
Present.
Lillian Wong.
Present.
Sid Brandwein.
Here.
Martha Garcia.
Here.
Glenn Kawaguchi.
Here.
Deborah McIntyre.
Here.
Rachel Michelin.
Here.
Mark Mordomi.
Here.
Maria Sperber.
Here.
David Turetsky.
Here.
All right, everyone is present. We have a quorum. Agenda item 2 is for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Are there any comments? Anyone in public? Actually, I should give an opportunity. Is there anyone seated in the public that would like to introduce themselves? You don't have to, but if you'd like to. Nobody? We're all shy. You want, maybe you all know each other. Maybe that's what it is. All right, so just a quick comment, like housekeeping comments. For every item that we go through, there will be an opportunity for public comment. So if you have anything, please just introduce yourself and then go ahead and speak and make your comments when the appropriate agenda item comes up. President's report. We have listed already the board meeting dates for next year. And then let's have Jessica Sieferman, the executive officer, introduce herself and the staff that is here.
Jessica Sieferman, executive officer of the board, and with us we have Kurt Heffler, our legal counsel. And over there we have the assistant executive officer, Rob Stephanopoulos, and our policy analyst, Joanne Stacy.
Also, we have a list of the committee work groups that were kind of restructured a little bit. Just to make a couple of comments, there were some comments that were made and some suggestions that were offered, and I just wanted to address those. One was that we put up to 5 people on a committee. We've tried that in the past, and we considered that, and one of the things that happened is that there was it wasn't cost effective, we were told, especially if there was traveling involved in in-person meetings. So that was one issue. Even for teleconferences, you have to pay out multiple per diem. So that was an issue that had come up. The other thing, and actually probably a little bit more important, is that the schedule manageability was not very easy. So 5 people instead of 2 or 3, trying to coordinate schedules if somebody had to cancel last minute, restructure. And because of that, at one point, we had stopped using the committees altogether and everything was just handled by the full board. So when some of you came on, the committees were not that active, and that was the reason why. So we started to do the committees in smaller groups to try to make that, because they're supposed to be work groups that come out with products and recommend to the full board. The full board always gets to deliberate, so rather than having half the board do work and all of the one exception is the legislative committee. There's always a lot of interest in that, and there's always a lot of help that can be used. So that one I made a little bit of an exception, but everything else we tried to keep it to 2 or 3. At one point, we only did 2 members because it made it really easy, but then someone commented that a 2-member work group or committee doesn't require a public notice, and that wasn't great for transparency. So then we said, okay, well, we were going to post them no matter if there were 2 or 3 or whatever it was. So that's kind of the thinking and why we did that. Another comment that was made was, well, actually one more comment about the number of people. One criticism that we had in the past is that because the committee was supposed to bring stuff to the full board, a lot of times when there were a lot of members, there were too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, so they just wound up referring things back to the board anyway. So that was the thought process of doing it this way. And then the other comment somebody made was about trying to vet conflicts of interest before we actually assign committee members. There are so many of them that come up for different reasons, not just for the optometrist, but it can be for the optician, if you happen to work for a corporation, if your law firm is doing something or another, if you happen to be working in Sacramento, if you do lobbying work, if you do public relations work. So the idea is if somebody has a conflict, we can substitute them out if we have to for a particular topic. Because if you try to, there are some people that have so many conflicts for example, when 684 was happening, we had a couple of board members that had a lot of conflicts. They would have never been able to participate in any committee work, even if it was not, if I didn't even consider them putting on a committee. So if we have a conflict, we'll sub it out. I can happily sub in, and Dr. Wong can sub in for a professional member, Donna. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but you can sub in for a, you know,
Who determines conflicts?
legal counsel.
Dr. Tresky, the Department of Consumer Affairs, I think it was actually Mr. Santiago, Michael Santiago, who's the formal counsel of the board, is our ethics officer. So if any member believes they have a conflict, they can certainly let DCA legal know. We will ask the executive officer to review the specialized fact pattern and determine whether a conflict exists.
Or if someone else brings up a conflict.
Or there's another external pressure to determine whether there's conflict. We can certainly do that within our office.
If the person who may have a conflict does not feel he or she has a conflict, but another member feels there's a conflict, would the person who's has the potential conflict, would they be notified that, you know, Rachel has a conflict with me being on a certain committee or something like that? Or is that sort of
Not
a
exactly.
blind conflict?
It's pretty much our analysis is done. It's difficult for us to do a blind analysis because we don't have all the facts. So if in fact an inquiry is made as to the suitability of another member on a member committee, we will, if that matter is brought to me, I will go to the DCA legal leadership and have them and present the issue. And then I kind of step out. My understanding is the executive officer will contact the member with the alleged conflict and determine the actual facts, and then pause it and then render a decision.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. In terms of the conflict, can we get a fact sheet on exactly what the process is if there's a conflict, like exactly how does it, so we're all on the same page and we understand who has the ultimate authority to determine who on this board has a conflict on serving on a committee
We
or
actually-
serving with an issue?
We're actually doing a whole presentation in January on that topic.
But it would be great, is part of that presentation going to be a fact sheet that each of us can have, like one page, this is the process, that type of thing?
Did you receive the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, I don't want a PowerPoint, I want one page that goes down, like, very simple, this is the process. If I think Dr. Turetsky has a conflict, as a board member, this is what I do first. Then it goes here, then it goes here. It's one page, a flow chart of exactly how it works so that we are all on the same page when it comes to understanding how issues of conflict are being addressed by this board and also by the Department of Consumer Affairs.
Ms. Michelle, I'm not sure that document exists right now, but I will certainly take that back to my boss and say, we've had a request from this board to create a one-page flow chart, and if we can construct such a thing, I'll certainly present it to the members.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Oh, there's another question.
Yes.
So we're talking about conflicts. We're talking about financial conflicts of interest.
Sure. It could be any conflict, you know, whether you have a financial conflict, if you're, I mean, most of the time that's what they are. That's what they are.
Okay.
Right, members, if I can be heard, I think it's important to notice that there's, you know, conflicts, and then also DCA has its, I'm sure you all remember signing the myriad of forms that you all signed. We have the DCA incompatible activities policy and signed document as well, so I'll include that. I'm not so sure, you know, I think it's important to remember that there are conflicts that happen within the Administrative Procedures Act realm, which is when we license or discipline somebody. You know, the person presenting or the person that's the subject of the action is a familiar member, your business partners, you know, your significant other, or something to use an extreme. So that's one thing. And then we have the generalized other issues that happen outside of the APA. So I think we ought not get bogged down in conflicts. If someone has a conflict, since I don't have the flow chart that Ms. Mitchell has right at the moment, if someone has a conflict or someone else thinks that someone else may have a conflict, why don't you talk to me, and I will be the conduit to DCA legal, and then ultimately to the ethics officer, and I think that would resolve the problem.
Thank you.
So item D, we had decided that we were going to try having monthly updates that are sent out to board members, so there's more information in between board meetings as to what's happening. If there's anything, most of the time it's just, you know, something that might have happened on a committee or something that happened on a work group, and then we go ahead and just relay that, disseminate that information, so it's all not happening at a board meeting. meeting, so that kind of make a more productive board meeting potentially and keep people more in the loop as to what's happening. So that's something that we're going to start after this board meeting. The DCA's annual distributed cost meeting. So they were supposed to have this meeting and the schedule. So Donna and I were both going to participate in that. And then they rescheduled it, and neither one of us was able to participate. So in lieu of that, what happened is that the DCA budget office came and gave a presentation to Donna. And so if you remember in the board member handbook, the vice president of the board, part of the duties that are outlined in the handbook is the VP is the liaison with staff and is tasked with monitoring and reporting budget to the board. So we had Donna have a full presentation in the office. And that's what we did for that. Donna, would you like to comment?
Sure. They were very generous with their time, given that they had scheduled the meeting, I think, for all of the units. And then I came down with a cold, which is now a sinus infection. But they spent 2 hours with me going through this wonderful book of their processes. And I will say I'm glad I never worked for the state. Oh my gosh, it is so convoluted is the perfect word. They have steps for everything. So we can rest assured that we will not overspend our money and that the government is doing its due diligence in making sure that whatever we are allocated for our budget is definitely no more than we should have and no less than we need. Having said that, they do a two-year forward, and then they also look at the number of staff that are on position, and then they also look at what you spent last year, and then they continually go through each month to look to see if we are where we are. So the best I could gather based on the presentation is that, and this is what Jessica and I are recommending to you, is that in January we have them present to us where we are in the budget. Because after all of the stuff that they go through, 6 months into your fiscal year is actually where you can tell whether or not you're on your budget. Accurate assessment?
Yeah.
All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
For the DCA internal board audit, I'm just going to have Jessica.
So we were selected for an internal DCA audit, and it was part of Sunset. So the boards who are facing Sunset were selected for the audit as well. And it's done through DCA internal audits. They come out and they essentially they start off having some meetings with me to go over the processes. They will look at all of our policies. They will look at our flow charts. They will interview staff. They will look at our procedure manuals, and then based on our procedures, they will pull some licensing files, pull some enforcement files, make sure we're compliant with anything. If there's anything that they identify that we can improve upon, they will let us know. Throughout the process, there's a lot of communication back and forth. They also send out a survey to staff to see if there's anything that management can do to improve on. So it's a really good opportunity to identify anything that we can improve on. And we've had a couple meetings with the auditor. She has access to the office, so she can come and go as she pleases. We have a cubicle set up for her. She has free reign to talk to staff. Staff has been encouraged to just be honest with whatever questions they have and be completely forthcoming. And it typically can last up to 6 months for the whole audit process. But I had asked, because we are doing our strategic plan in January, and I would like to identify any improvements that they have found and put it into our strategic plan, so make sure we address it at all. And so they're working on a quicker time frame for us, and they think they can do it because we're a smaller program than the bigger ones. They just finished with contract state license board, so that took a lot of time because that was obviously a lot bigger board. They have a lot more staff, so they think they can get us the report by then, so that'll be good. Once they give us time they will tell us anything that we can improve on. We respond to those, and then they issue a final report. That report will come to the board members. That also is a public report for distribution on our website and our stakeholders. So any questions with that?
Question.
Yes.
So is there an estimate on how much staff time will be invested for the audit?
There has not been any formal estimates, and I think that the auditor she's met with a couple of the staff already, and not a lot of staff time has been dedicated to it right now, because she's going to first get the procedures, and then she's going to pull files, and if she has questions, then she'll be asking staff about the questions for any procedural things. But I don't think it's going to take a huge staff drain to help with the audit. Any other questions?
Okay. So a couple of updates on teleconference procedures and policies. We're looking into a couple of things about getting a line for public to call into as a general way of tapping into one of our teleconferences, and also the WebEx. Do you want to talk about, we're looking at kind of using a WebEx potentially as well. We're going to pilot.
Yeah, there's actually several things that I'm excited to report on. But for this one, we are looking at using WebEx for now, right? And DC is also transitioning to what's called Office 365, and it includes Skype for Business, which is supposed to be a lot better than how normal Skype runs, because I think running a meeting based on how normal Skype runs, there's a lot of glitches in there, and I don't think it'd be really great. So until we get the Skype for Business, we are going to start a pilot with WebEx. And I hope to pilot that with the Practice and Education Committee, because that committee meets quite frequently to approve some CE courses. So we're going to do kind of a test pilot to see if that's something that we can do, and I think that would help with the teleconference issues as well.
Yeah. And Jessica, I just have a comment. I think WebEx is really good. I've used it in other meetings, and it works perfect.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And Office 365.
Yeah.
Link Skype is awesome.
Oh, so you guys
It's
are
actually-
all way ahead of us. We're
It's better than the WebEx.
We can share screens, look at presentations.
Yeah.
Amen.
Oh,
So that's the president's report. Agenda item 4, actually, they are going to call in.
Comment on, I have a couple questions on the president's report.
Uh-huh.
On the board meeting dates, I have another question as to why we're having 3 board meetings in 2017, again in Northern California, and only 1 in Southern California. Because, I think we're a statewide board, so particularly looking at San Diego, Riverside, Inland Empire, I thought we had discussed at the last board meeting, so I was a little surprised that we're yet again 3 in Northern, 1 in Southern. So I'm just asking.
Well, we had a different distribution, and then we moved one of them for the solid presentation. And
we kept the others.
And we
That's what
kept the
happened.
others. We kept the Bay Area, and we kept the other Sacramento meeting. You can move one.
We're in Southern California. We're pretty big down here.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole state is big, right? So the idea is to kind of try to, you're not going to get every place every year, so we can just try to get a healthier mix of, we've been in LA, we've been in Orange County, we can try some other locations. I actually thought that Mark's idea was not a bad one. It's a good place to start. You made a comment last time about if someone actually requests for us to go somewhere. We should look at everything, right? Every place that we can probably go, target the different counties. But if someone does actually express an interest, I don't think that's a bad place to start. Because they're asking. So we should honor the request and then maybe look to diversify. Same thing in Northern California. We choose Sacramento for obvious reasons. It doesn't always have to be in Sacramento. How it used to be when I first came on the board, it's like going on 5 years now, is we used to kind of try to use the optometry schools, right? And then Sacramento. And so we would be in Berkeley. It's an optometry school, and 2 in Southern California. Sometimes LA because of the buildings downtown, but there used to be a lot of, logistically it was hard for the LA buildings because they have a lot of, we have construction, we have changes. So when that all kind of settles down, maybe we can use those buildings again. But they always look for like state available buildings. It's one of the reasons we gravitate to some of the bigger cities because they have more. So that's the reasoning for it, and we can definitely try to spread it out more. But and it's fine. I mean, that doesn't have to be set in stone. Those things. So we did have another one in Southern California, which we moved north, right? So we can switch one out. It's not a big
I just think if
Yeah.
it's in a public document, like this is public, you have people from the public that also are trying to plan their schedules. And I don't understand why we can't sit down and decide where, I'm doing 12 events around the state, and I already know exactly where and when the events are. It's not hard to sit down and figure out locations. I agree with Mark, but I think that's gonna take some outreach to people to say, hey, let us know if you'd like us to have a meeting. But if this is a public document, you know, we didn't even know where the location was for this meeting was until, I mean, even at our Children's Vision meeting, we couldn't even tell people where the meeting was. So I think having it noticed early so people know, so they can plan on coming, especially if we want to try to reach out to the public, I think that's important. And this was in our packet, so it's already public. So I think that I'm having a hard time processing why this is such a difficult project to do.
So I asked some of the questions you're asking, and one of the answers I got, which you guys can elaborate on, is that when you tried, like when we were trying to do something, it wasn't actually supposed to be in El Segundo, it was supposed to be somewhere else. Well, that didn't work out with like the bids and the hotels because there was an event, I don't know what even was happening.
Pony Palooza.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, we could have done it. It could have been more fun. I mean, it's post-Halloween, it's pre-Thanksgiving, I don't know. But so Pony Palooza is happening in Burbank, which was, we're trying to do that. So you can't plan for Pony Palooza.
Oh, no, I
so, maybe you can, I don't
Yeah.
know. So, but it's not something that I think that comes up. We can do better. We can definitely do better
But
about
they
what you're
started
asking.
earlier, so like starting
We can.
now,
Yeah,
and
we
saying,
are.
here's where we're gonna be.
We are
Yeah.
doing that now. So
And I think that just is a
Yeah.
service to the public, so that they know where, and to us. I mean, you know, there's some of us that we travel, we all have vacations, it's hard to schedule when
Right.
you're, you know.
I mean, and some of the things I was mentioning about, I specifically mentioned the LA buildings because those were last minute, oh, you can't because now we're doing this.
Yeah.
And so, some of
I
those
totally
things
get that,
happen.
yeah.
But we definitely are trying to do it better. with
Yeah,
the-
so what happened with actually with this meeting and in January is because, bless you. This meeting was actually going to be, we did reserve a location for the November meeting, but that was when it was in Irvine, and then we had a problem with the prior meeting, and we had that in Irvine. So because we had the prior meeting in Irvine, we didn't want to have this meeting in Irvine, so we had to find another location for this meeting. So that's when we looked at the main airports and see what hotels are close to it. So it was a logistical problem for us to get it, but this was secured a year ago. It's just because we changed the location. But I mean, staff feels you too, because we absolutely want it a year in advance. So staff is working on securing the rooms now. So what I would like, if you guys would like to have, like, swap the August and November meeting, if you would rather have August be in Southern California and November be in Sacramento, and then if you have maybe a couple choices that you would prefer the cities, then let us know and we can start on that now. So if you have a preference for the Southern California, what city, and then staff will start it.
You know, I go to San Diego. Has the
Okay.
board ever gone to San Diego?
Are you looking for
I like
vacation?
San Diego.
Are you looking for vacation? You're looking for
No,
vacation.
I'm saying because I used to, on another board I was appointed to, we met in the county, it was the easiest thing ever. You flew in, you took Uber 7 minutes to the county building, they have county, I mean, it was so easy. And, I would go there, I'd go to Inland Empire, I would go somewhere in Southern California that we haven't been to.
Another thing we have, and if that's what the board wants to do, that's what staff will look into doing, but one thing we do keep in mind is the cost. And so we would have, most of the board members would have to then travel and get a hotel room, and so the costs increase, but as long as, if that's what the board wants us to research, we will do it.
Actually, I'll speak for, I could just fly down in the morning. It's so easy, the location in San Diego, you can fly in the morning and just, you don't even have to spend the night. I mean, it's,
Or Dr. McIntyre the host.
yeah. I mean, I just think it's important that perception is important. Perception is, people do pay attention, and the more information we can put out there on where the public can come, especially as we're talking about issues pertaining to children's vision or mobile clinics or whatever, some of these big issues that are coming up, to have the opportunity for the public to know where we're going to be so that they can comment is really important.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is, to address, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So what about, because we often have multiple meetings in Sacramento because a lot of the people who are involved in those things are in Sacramento. Do people think that, because then it's like you have to ask all of them to travel, right? Sometimes issues come up and we have to restructure. We've had meetings scheduled in other places in the past, and then we're like, oh no, we have to put them in Sacramento, which happened a lot, for example, during 684's discussions. So how do people feel about not being, because Sacramento, again, is the same location that comes up over and
No,
over.
I don't care. I would say don't be in Sacramento. I mean, I don't care. I care more about making sure we're accessible to the public. I would go to Reading.
I was gonna say.
I'd go to, we could go up to Glenn County. We can, I mean, I am all about being accessible so the public has an opportunity and it looks like we're trying to be there so people can comment and be involved in what we're talking about. So anywhere in the state, I go there anyway, so I'll go wherever.
And another comment somebody made to me when I asked this question was about, sometimes we pick the bigger cities because they are more accessible to people, so yes, you want to be all over the place and try to do different places, and there are certain locations we can go to that we haven't, but you want to be able to be, it has to be reasonable, so I mean,
I honestly don't care. All I want is 2 meetings in Southern California with locations identified, 2 meetings in Northern California with locations identified. I could care less where they're at. But I just think it's important that we identify the dates, we identify the locations, and that it is spread out throughout the state.
So would you like the August 4th meeting moved to Southern California and then November 3rd meeting moved to Northern
Why don't you
California?
just-
I don't care.
Why don't
Whatever
you
the board,
alternate?
it's not about me,
Yeah, do
it's
this.
about the board. So whatever the board wants to
this.
do.
We can alternate them, right?
Okay.
Northern, southern, let's do that.
Okay.
So we can, it doesn't matter, and you don't have to, it doesn't have to be separate.
Okay.
So let's just do that.
April.
We're gonna do northern, southern, just alternating them, and then we can figure out, well, the January one has to be in Sacramento, that's.
Yes.
If I can just, I'll be very quick. Apply a little, I wouldn't say common sense, but sense. If there are issues that we think are relevant to a particular geographic area, or, I understand what Rachel says about being accessible to the public, but I think that's an issue by issue basis, and I understand that on the public document, we want to show that we're, in Reading or Irvine or something like that, but if nobody shows up anyway, then it's.
That was the comment about the city,
Yeah.
Well, I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
throwing Reading out there. I'm just using it as an example.
No, I'm
We
just
don't
using an
need to
example.
be.
Yeah, right. I agree with that.
I will be at Reading
Yeah.
tomorrow. but-
I'll shut up.
No, it's, you don't have to.
Yeah.
So, that's fine. So these are the two, kind of things that we're always trying to address.
Right. Get it.
I mean, we could be other boards do San Diego, LA, Orange County, Oakland, Sacramento, or Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area. Med board, dental board, I just
other
don't
than-
get why it's constantly such a challenge to set board meeting dates.
Well, actually, the only one that we haven't really done is San Diego.
Yeah.
Up before that she mentioned. So we can try to.
Okay, that'd be great. And then are you gonna tell who's on the committees and the work groups?
I can.
There should be a
Oh,
sheet.
It's
I
in your.
didn't see all my stuff. Okay.
It wasn't a secret. So, agenda item 4, it's NBAO, we're gonna call them at 2, so we're gonna just defer that until 2 o'clock. And so agenda item 5, that brings us to the presentation from Arbo on OBTracker, and we have Sierra Rice. Where are you?
Sorry, I switched.
Oh, I'm sorry, one thing I forgot to do here. Is there any other public comment for agenda item 3? Anyone? No. All right. So then we're gonna go to agenda item 5.
Yes.
So Sierra Rice is up from OBTracker.
Switch it in.
I'm sorry, to clarify, members, we are moving to agenda item 5 because agenda item 4 we have a 2 o'clock conference call with NBEO because they weren't able to participate in person, so that's why we're jumping to 5. 2 o'clock our time, yes.
Yeah, this will be fine. Hello, I'm Sierra Rice. I am a program manager at Arbo. I had the pleasure of presenting to your board in 2013. And I was telling Dr. Chawla it was very terrifying because it was in Sacramento and I had to go up to a podium. So this is much more my scene. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm basically just going to go over, what OBTracker is, what we can do for you as a board, how we help other state boards of optometry, and just give a little bit of explanation on some of the things you can utilize as a member board that are at your fingertips on a daily basis. So, ARBO's mission statement is pretty basic, simple. We're here to help you protect the public. Anything we can do to assist you to make sure the public's welfare is your number one priority. Based on that, ARBO created 3 programs. We have COPE, which is our accrediting arm. We took all the state board CE requirements and we put them into a accrediting body, which courses go through COPE and they get reviewed based on all the board's CE requirements and approved and whatnot. Then we have OBTracker, which is basically what I like to call an online filing cabinet of all the CE hours for optometrists. And then we have a third branch, CELMO, which is a licensing mobility vehicle for optometrists trying to get licenses in new states. It can assist them in doing that. But basically today we'll just be talking about OBTracker. And a simple way to put it, it captures, verifies, and stores optometrist CE attendance data for as long of amount of time as we need it, indefinitely, essentially. It was created to benefit licensing boards, but since creating it, we've realized that optometrists and CE providers can definitely benefit from OBTracker as well. Right now, we have about 50,534 optometrists in OBTracker. When OBTracker was created in 1995, all of the member boards got together and gave us rosters of their licensees, and we inputted them into the system. And based on that, we actually request on a yearly basis updated rosters so we can try to keep everyone's license data up to date. About 95% of our optometrists in OBTracker have some sort of CE data in their account, so some sort of CE hours. And then we're over 3 million total records of attendance that are in OBTracker, which is a lot, and it's increasing on a daily basis. We have more and more optometrists starting to use OBTracker, starting to send us attendance, same with CE providers, so it'll be over 4 million before we know it, before our next annual meeting next year. As of October, last month, we had 6,433 optometrists with a California license number. And that was based on self-reporting. So individual optometrists contact us to tell us what their California license number was. Rob was amazing and has sent us a roster of all of your licensees. So we are in the process of updating this number and adding more license numbers into the system, so we'll have a more accurate number. And then out of those 6,433, about 5,945 have some type of CE hours in their account, and about half have set up their user name and password with OBTracker, meaning they've contacted us, created a username and password, and at least logged in once to see what OBTracker is and what they can do with it.
Question?
Yes.
How many California optometrists are paying the fee to be active?
I don't have that number with me, but I can definitely get it for you. I can tell you that I've gotten calls on a daily basis from California optometrists adding their license numbers and creating usernames and passwords. I don't know what the push is behind it, but it's been amazing. So,
So in order to set up your username and password, you've had to pay the fee?
No.
No?
You do not have to pay the fee to set up a username and password.
To access the data.
To access the...
For complete access, I'll get into what complete access is. At any time, an optometrist can log into their account and see how many hours are in there. They don't have to have their fee paid for that. The fee comes in if they need to print off a complete transcript, or if for whatever reason they are missing hours in their account and need to send us a paper CE certificate to add the hours into their account. But any attendance that we get from providers, we put in to people's accounts at no cost, whether they have their subscription fee or not.
So of the 50,534 active optometrists, how many of them are paying the fee?
Which is what you just asked. I don't have that
you
number
don't
with
know?
me, but I
Even
can
like
definitely get that
active,
number with
even
you.
from other states, you don't have that number? From other states, like total, right now, how many total You don't know?
I don't have that with me right now. I just came with the California number, sorry. Yes.
Because it's new to me, what is a fee? I'm curious. What, you don't have.
Sorry.
It's fine.
No, no.
I'm going to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, in the future.
Okay.
All right, so just a quick overview of value to optometrists. 24/7, you can go online to see your CE hours. You don't have to worry about keeping paper certificates anymore. All of your certificates are in your OBTracker account. If for whatever reason you needed to access them, you can. We've actually had optometrists who have had fires or floods in their offices and lost all of their CE certificates, and if they didn't have them in OBTracker, it would have been a problem when it came to license renewal.
Sorry to interrupt one more time.
Yes.
I know we're talking about the fee. As you're going through this, when you talk about the value to the optometrist, this is for someone who does not pay the fee, right? Or do these values
So,
depend on
okay.
whether you pay the fee or not?
Totally fine. So, 24/7 online access is for any optometrist regardless of if you have your fee paid or not. You can log in, see hours and a date. You can keep all of your CE hours in there. Like I said, if a CE provider sends us attendance for you, it goes into your account regardless. Review license renewal requirements by jurisdiction. Every optometrist can review that information. Now, as far as view CE hours earned in your current renewal period in all states, that is a member benefit if you have paid your subscription fee. You can see, okay, I'm licensed in California, these are the requirements, these are the hours that I've completed, these are the hours that I still need to complete. It comes in handy for a lot of optometrists who are licensed in multiple jurisdictions, essentially. And then the value to licensing boards, which we'll get into a lot more. With OBTracker, you can audit 100% of your licensees. You can do that in a matter of minutes. We have different reports that I'll get into that allow you to do the audits, and this really reduces your administrative efforts. You know, right now I know that you have CE certificates coming into you. We essentially take that off of you. We get the CE certificates, we make sure they're valid, we input them into the system. And you're reducing paper, obviously. You don't have to keep the paper certificates on file. Everything that you need is accessed online. And then it can help if you're trying to verify attendance from somebody coming into your state and trying to get a California license. So before I came, I tried to get a little bit of an idea of how you do your auditing right now. Basically, you audit around 15 optometrists a month, and you request copies of all the CE certificates. Then you go through and you input them into a database, you know, tracking, you know, how many hours go here, how many hours go there. If you decide to utilize OBTracker for auditing purposes, as a member board, you have free access to 4 different types of reports that can audit 100% of licensees if you decide that you want, you know, to utilize this information. We have those reports 24/7. You can log in at any time, and you can run the reports in a matter of minutes. And for states that have unique CE requirements, like you don't accept business management hours or you have CPR requirements, we can create custom reports that might be able to help you navigate your way through your auditing process. As I just mentioned, it would reduce your administrative efforts and save you paper. You're no longer going to need to request those copies of CE certificates because all that information is already coming to us and we're inputting it into the system. All of our CE is going to be electronic for you, so you can either run the reports, and we have an automatic data transfer. If you have online renewals, it comes in handy there where your system would contact our database when renewal time comes around. All the data in OBTracker comes over to your program, so if someone logs in and they tries to renew, if all their hours are in their account, they can renew. If not, you would, you know, put something up like contact the board, or you would have to put some type of message in there if they don't get to renew. Yes.
Does, do you do anything like routinely check the National Practitioner Data Bank or anything like that for any irregularities, malpractice settlements, criminal convictions, things like that?
To my knowledge, we do not.
Okay.
And a lot of questions that we get are what other member boards are using OBTracker, how are they using it? Every board's going to be different on how they use OBTracker. I believe on your next agenda item, Jessica has included a breakdown sheet of what state boards are using OBTracker, how they're using it for auditing. Pretty much every state, minus the ones in pink, are at least accepting OBTracker CE certificates. We have 16 member boards that are actively auditing with OBTracker, and we have about 6 to 7 more that are considering auditing with it. And like I said, every state board is going to be different on how they use OBTracker. I tried to give you a little bit of a breakdown of how different boards use it differently. In Alabama, if all of their CE hours are in OBTracker, they actually don't get audited. They get their license renewal. Arkansas uses our system to audit. They're also encouraged to use OBTracker. All the CE providers in the state of Arkansas have to send their attendance to us, so that eliminates the need for the optometrists to pay their fee because all their CE is already coming into us from the CE providers, and they audit 100% with that. Tennessee, we actually work with them and we actually do their audits for them, and we send notices. And then we just started working last year with Ontario. It's our first Canadian province. And we will be doing 100% electronic audit for their next 3-year renewal cycle. I'm not gonna, read you the quotes, but I just wanted to include information in there about, state boards that use OBTracker that enjoy it. Because I can stand up here and tell you this is how they use it, they love it. But we did request if you like OBTracker, tell us why. So we have some information on there on why they like it, and then we get into just the mechanics of it and how you log into OBTracker as a member board. It's very simple. You go to our website, you find the member board login, which, by the way, Jessica has the username and password for your member board. Every member board has one username and password, and the only data that you will see is data for an optometrist with a California license. So you're not seeing other jurisdictions' information in their CE hours, you're just seeing the California licensee's hours. So when you log in, this is your menu. You get to pick from looking up OBTracker numbers. You can validate a CE certificate. I'll show you in a minute what a CE certificate looks like and what that purpose is. The automatic data transfer option, where your system would connect to ours, is at the bottom. And then the most popular link is the looking up CE attendance. So we have, like I said, we have 4 different reports for auditing purposes. We have a summary report that will give you just the number of hours in an optometrist account for a specific time period. So say your license renewal is 2 years. You pick the 2-year date range and it'll pull up everybody's hours from that year. If you really need to get detailed and see course titles, instructor names, categories, whether it was live or distance learning, we have a detailed report that will actually show you everything that is in the optometrist individual account. If you just wanted to see what optometrists have 0 hours in OBTracker, we have a report that will just pull up everybody with 0 hours. Or if you just needed to find one specific optometrist information, you can search for an individual. And these are based on, we sent a query out to our member boards about 5 years ago, asking them what reports would be most beneficial for them. That's what we created. As I mentioned, we can do a custom report. It's part of your benefit as a member board. So you would essentially have another link on here for your custom report.
I have a question on that menu. So it shows the balances of what the optometrists have taken, the hours that's
Yes.
tracking. Does it also show what the requirements are? Just sort of like to show, you have this balance, but this is still what is required?
It doesn't, but that could possibly be something we could do custom for you depending on what you needed. Yeah. So as I mentioned, this is just the area where you would put the date range in. And this is just an example of what a summary report looks like. All of our reports are in Excel, which is nice because you can sort them how you need them. You can also choose to list by OBTracker number or name or license number. This is our detailed report. As I said, it tells you literally everything that we have in the system for them. The course title, if it's COPE, if it's not COPE, if it's live, if it's continuing education with examination, the date, instructor, everything like that. And then this is just an example of the OBTracker certificates that we create. Everything on this certificate is based off of what state boards told us they required for their own CE certificates. So all the information is included on there. The digital validation number comes into play if you needed to verify that a certificate they submitted is a legit certificate, if you thought it was something fake. People have done that. You put this number in, if it's legit, they tell you it's legit. Obviously, if you're going to use OBTracker for auditing, you won't need these, but people do need them for, licensing privileges, specific board certification, things like that. And then the most asked question is usually, how does my attendance get into OBTracker? So attendance gets into OBTracker either by CE providers or optometrists themselves. So we have 2 pre-formatted Excel spreadsheets available on our website to anyone for COPE courses and non-COPE courses, just meaning they didn't go through the COPE accreditation process. And if a CE provider fills those forms out with their attendance information and emails them to us, we upload that information into OBTracker at no cost. Some CE providers also have barcode scanners that they use to collect CE information. All they have to do is move that information into our spreadsheet, email to us, we upload it into OBTracker. We also have a mobile app that is free to use for CE providers, where you're actually putting the attendance data into OBTracker real time. You're using a QR code with our specific app for your course. The optometrist or the CE provider is scanning that, and the course CE hours are going into the account. And then optometrists can either fax or email us their certificates, and we just added a new upload feature in OBTracker where you can fill out a form and attach a copy of your certificate, and it comes to us electronically that way.
Question.
Yes.
In order to do those final tasks, faxing, emailing, you have to pay the fee.
The fee, yes. Subscription fee, if you are faxing, emailing, or individual uploading paper certificates to us to add into your account, your subscription fee must be up to date. So a big misconception is that we only put CE, and that's COPE CE. That's not true. We put COPE and non-COPE. We put CP hours in all the time, and we go to our member boards that use OBTracker, and we ask them, how many hours do you give for CPR? So we know when we get a CPR certificate how many hours that an optometrist can get for that time period. Ontario has a lot of different ways that they can get credit for CE. So as long as we can get some type of verification information from them on what we can upload, as long as it counts as CE, we'll put it into OBTracker. And once the attendance is uploaded into OBTracker, regardless if you have your fee paid or not, if you have an email address in your account, you'll get an email telling you that we uploaded the CE into your account, the course title, the CE hours, and there's a link in that email that you can actually use, and you can print off a CE certificate at no charge for 14 days. So if you've not paid the fee, you'll still get that email with that link. And you can also log into your account if for whatever reason you deleted the email or not, you can still print off that CE certificate for 14 days. And then just wanted to give you an idea of some of the state associations that are submitting and attendance to OBTracker and utilizing the OBTracker app. Everybody with an asterisk is. Even some associations whose boards aren't necessarily utilizing OBTracker still send us their attendance because they find it's a lot easier to send it to us electronically than keep track of it on paper and give out paper CE certificates. I talk to a lot of people that say they want to get away from the punching and the paper. Just some testimonials. I won't read them to you, just for your information. I know you have a copy of this in your meeting materials. These are from some of our associations who have used OBTracker and utilize the app and why they like it. And then we really talked about most of the fees, but as a member board, there's no charge for you to utilize OBTracker on the audit or the automatic data transfer. And as long as we get CE electronically from providers, there's no fee with that. If an optometrist chooses to pay their subscription fee for complete access, 1 year is $25, 3 years is $60. And then we also offer a group discount rate to state boards or associations, and it takes it down to, instead of $25, it would be $15 for a year for an optometrist.
Question?
Yes.
Do you have any cost justification you can share with us as far as where the fees go, how it's, because it's a nonprofit organization, right? So are there any information that you can share with us related to that?
I can't speak for specifics, but I mean, we are manually inputting CE into OBTracker. So some of it does go to the manpower that goes into inputting these individual CE hours in. I could definitely ask my executive director for more detailed information on the fees if you'd like.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm on your website for the OBTracker. What's the relationship between this and Allergan and Johnson & Johnson?
That is just an ARBO relationship. It has nothing to do with OBTracker specifically or any other program. Are you talking about the logos that are on it? They've just given us a grant at some point in exchange for use of their logo on the website, but it doesn't go specifically to OBTracker or to COPE or to...
But is this does this OBTracker have a separate budget, or is it under as a line item under our ARBO's general budget? When you file your 990,
I don't have that information. I'd have to ask my executive director on that.
Because I think getting financial data, audited financial statements, knowing where the money's going, how many people are paying into it, what the relationship is with, you only have 2 drug companies or healthcare companies on here. There's a bunch of others as well. I'm not very comfortable not having that financial data.
Okay, I can try to get as much of that as I can for you. Be happy to. And that's, pretty much the sum of it. Yes.
And I noticed in your menu, it said something about COPE. Do you have, what do you do with COPE? Do you have like a process how to get like, let's say a class certified that way? Or is that something we have to do in our states? Like, let's say I wanted to create a class for optometrists and I have to get it certified. Can I do any of that?
Online. Everything we have for COPE is online. It's an online submittal process where we have required information that we need from either the submitter or the instructor of the course. That includes a CV, an outline of the course, the hours, what category description. There is a fee involved with submitting a course, to go through COPE, and then it goes through a review process. We have COPE reviewers that have gone through training for the reviewal, and they go through, and if they see anything that doesn't meet the COPE standards, they come back and say, yeah. But a lot of people think that's OBTracker and COPE. They're actually 2 separate arms. Like I said, we'll put in CE that's COPE approved, we'll put in CE that's non-COPE. Doesn't matter as long as it counts for renewal.
I have another question. So can a consumer look up whether or not an optometrist has completed their CE credits through Breeze? Like, can you, as a consumer, if I want to know if my optometrist is taking classes or whatever?
So currently how it works during the renewal process, because uploading and verifying all the CE is very time consuming, but understanding that CE was put there for consumer protection to make sure that the optometrist is up to date with their continuing education. How it works, and it's not just for our board, it's I think for all of the boards in DCA, there is a question on renewal that they have to certify that they have met the conditions of renewal, the CE requirements for renewal. So after that they do that, then we go and do the audit, and that we're only touching maybe 5% of those optometrists for auditing purposes. So as far as for the consumer, if that optometrist has a up-to-date license, then that's their indication that they've met the CE requirements.
So can a member of the public access the system?
No. No.
So what is the benefit to the public? There is no benefit to the public.
That's
or the
not true.
consumer.
Actually, 100% at the moment. Jessica mentioned that 5% of licenses get audited for CE. So that's not very many of the 8,000 whatever optometrists. This would allow 100% audit to happen, which ensures, because basically you can't get a license without having CE, but we have such a laborious system that we can't actually verify all of it. This would allow us to verify all of it. That's the whole point.
Did you talk to anyone, like, are there any other systems like this out there? Are there any other businesses doing this, or?
I mean, there are systems that deal with CE and, you know, different licenses, but this is the only one that's specifically for optometrists, created for the member boards of optometry based on their requirements.
What do we pay to be a member?
Nothing.
We don't pay to be a
There's
member?
membership.
There's a due.
Do we know what that number is? We know nothing about the financial aspect of any of this? Okay, so we don't know what we pay to belong
I
to?
want to say it's 700. I can look and get that information to you as far as our membership dues for ARBO.
Oh, but it's
for
part of the ARBO
For
membership.
ARBO.
For ARBO,
Just
not
ARBO
for,
in general.
But that includes this, right?
yes,
Yes.
there's no extra fee for this.
Right.
So the benefit would be that this way we would audit 100% of all the optometrists.
Right.
Because like, I mean, I know I have CE certificates from 15 years ago that are still sitting in my file cabinet in fear of being audited
Yeah,
by
because
the
they
board.
can call you anytime.
But that only works if we mandate it for every optometrist, correct?
Right.
Right.
Whether they want to be in it or not, we're going to make it a condition of their license that they have to belong to this.
Or we could increase our fees and make it so that it's the $15, the state would
$15.
make it as part of our renewal, and then this optometrist would
Or we
automatically
could
add
just
15.
decrease our fees if it's going to save staff time. I'm just, you know, but I still
As lovely
want to
as
know what the
Virginia is.
financial aspect of this whole thing is. I mean, not knowing any of the financial data, I mean, that is a red flag that we don't have any of that.
So of the 6 states that require optometrists to use this, how many of them are paying for the services for the optometrists?
Right now, we have 5 member boards that pay their licensees, and we have 2 state associations that pay for their licensees.
But not everybody's a member of the state associations,
It's
right?
a member benefit for the association members. And those states do not require OBTracker for those associations. The associations just, they see the benefit for their members, and the members, you know, utilize OBTracker.
How do you get the courses to send, I mean, how do all CE courses know to send you information, I guess, about attendance? Is it just sort of people who give CE just know that we should send information to OBTracker?
As far with the co-providers who do co-CE, I mean, when they sign up, we request that we say that you either have to send us CE electronically or you have to provide a paper CE certificate. And as I said, a lot of them don't want to have to deal with the paper certificate, so they just make sure that all the optometrists bring their OBTracker numbers and they send us electronically.
What about just like some of the other general?
Some of the others, a lot of times it's the optometrists themselves going to the meetings and saying, hey, did you know you could send your CE electronically to OBTracker and you don't have to do this? And we actually have a lot of non-COPE, we call them non-COPE CE providers because they're not COPE, but just general CE providers that send us attendance for, you know, monthly meetings, different things like that.
And then all the online CE automatically uploads to you?
I wish. we're hoping one day that will. We still have to get that online CE. Review of Optometry is a huge one, and we are actually working with them right now, so they'll start sending us attendance because in the past they haven't. So that's kind of been one of my big projects, is to try to get them to start sending us the attendance electronically, because I would say a majority of the paper certificates we get are online courses that we just don't get the attendance from. A lot of the larger CE providers already are sending us attendance electronically.
So I think I read somewhere in your report that some states require OBTracker just for audit. What is that? Does that mean that the board has access to OBTracker for auditing purposes?
The board requires that the optometrist data is in OBTracker for auditing purposes. So they audit everyone's OBTracker,
Okay.
essentially.
So So is that the purple state or the
It's really,
green state?
I would, honestly, I would look at the handout that Jessica has in the next section. So,
This one.
because that breaks out how each individual board is utilizing it. The map is confusing.
Okay.
And I would like to eventually not have that maybe one day.
I've been looking at that map like every day.
I know. It seems
Well,
to be
because
red
you-
and blue
It's red and
with
blue.
stripes and purple.
Yeah, it's, I mean, automatic data transfer, that means that, like I said, our system talks to their system, so they're utilizing that data for auditing purposes. The purple, they're obviously auditing with OBTracker. The green, so purple, blue, and green are using OBTracker for auditing purposes. Yellow is they'll accept, your board will accept transcripts from OBTracker and certificates, but you don't use OBTracker to audit your licensees.
So, if we wanted to become a purple state,
Yes.
I feel like I'm on CNN. I guess it would just take a mere action by the board that says we want to be a participating organization or a OBTracker. If we wanted to become a green state, it seems to me that we'd have to pass legislation requiring optometrists.
Regulation. That's the next agenda item.
Okay. To require our licensees to input their CE into OBTracker.
And to pay for it.
And to pay for it, yeah. We could do that by regulation. Okay. All right, thank you.
I just want to get this clear in my head. Okay, so I belong to one of the smaller optometric societies in the state.
Okay.
And I go to a CE and they give me my little paper certificate. If I want to upload that and I'm not a member, what's the fee to do that?
$25 for 1 year, or $60 for.
No, but I'm not, and I have not signed up. I don't.
You have to
That's,
sign
you
up
have to
for
sign
it.
up to send us your paper certificates.
Okay, so
So we would not
we're-
be able to upload it unless your fee was updated.
Okay, so basically that means that if this was changed into regulation, that the board wants all optometrists to submit to OBTracker, they're gonna be forced to, $25 doesn't mean anything, but I guarantee you there will be at least 100 people screaming bloody murder about having to pay, so that's an
I
issue.
can tell you some state boards, to alleviate that, require their CE providers to submit attendance electronically. Instead of putting that as much on the optometrist themselves, they tell all their CE providers that they have to submit attendance to OBTracker because, like I said, we upload that into OBTracker at no fee.
And if that was the case, then an optometrist wouldn't have to pay the $25 a year fee?
Theoretically, because if you're requiring all of your CE providers to do that, they're all sending it in. But, I mean, it's not always perfect. Not every CE provider is probably going to follow that. I don't know personally what their percentage of CE providers do that. A lot of licensees in those states, you know, come to see the benefit of paying their subscription fees, so they'll go ahead and pay it and, you know, send certificates if they're not in there already.
There's definitely a benefit, but it's an absolute guarantee with 8,000 optometrists, you're going to have a handful that are going to have a fit over an additional $25 a year, $60 for 3 years.
Or we could just increase
Absorb-
the
Increase
renewal
the renewal
fee
fee by $15.
by $15.
Increase the renewal or, yeah.
Or leave it the same, because as you mentioned, staff doesn't have to do as much work, so you can just say we're doing this now. So it's $15 if we want.
Thank you.
All right, so any public, yes?
So I have a few questions.
Yeah.
I pulled up my OBTracker, and there's no titles or anything. It has units, but we require in the state of California certain types of educational number of hours in certain kind of content areas, but the titles of the courses don't even show up or any of that other information. So
That's part of the subscription fee. So right now, when you log in, you'll just see a date
so
and
it
number
really
of
has no
hours.
value to me as a practitioner if I need to show them that I've taken this many hours of ocular disease, glaucoma, blah, blah, blah.
Not as is, not currently.
Okay.
Like I said, for complete access, which it would include a full transcript, which is what you would be sending to the board, that is the fees included with that.
And so then, for those that are non-COPE approved lectures, I would then be required to upload that myself, scan and upload those documents, you know, because, and I'm thinking about the ophthalmologist that has that CE in their office. They don't go through OBTracker or COPE. They usually get their certification either through the state board or, you know, right now I think it's the state board, the state association, and the schools and colleges can grant continuing education.
You
And
upload
so,
the certificate, and then they can, if you have a certificate, you know how we get those certificates?
Right.
So you can upload those, and then they.
but
That's
I'm
what
hearing that
she's
it has to
saying.
be electronically submitted to them.
No, it
Without,
doesn't.
if you
No,
don't
no.
wanna pay the fee.
If CE providers that send us electronically in our upload forms, we upload automatically. If you need to send us a paper certificate, whether you fax it or email it, you'll have to have your subscription fee up to date.
So I'm forced to subscribe to even like utilize that particular modality.
Yes.
Okay. And then lastly, I have 3 licenses in 3 different states. This only allows me to my state in California.
No.
Then how do I get it recorded? So, because my OBTracker is linked to my license here.
Right. So there's a way to put all of your license numbers in your account. So you would be anything, you know, that goes into your OBTracker account. So if you have say your license in Louisiana, the Louisiana board can see everything in your OBTracker account, just like the California board can see everything in your OBTracker account. Regardless of if you can see it right now, the state board can always see everything that's in your account. The fee is what allows you to see a full, complete transcript.
Because the board is a member of ARBO, right? And so, because of that, we
have
see.
complete access.
We
Right.
have complete access, even though you.
So I have a question. So you currently are using it?
No, I
Oh.
just pulled up my track, because this is relatively new. It used to be that it was subscription. This is the first time I've heard that there is even access to any part.
Limited access.
And so I pulled it up just to see what the units
Right.
were that I had, but there's no titles of courses, which for me is problematic, because if I'm trying to plan my CE and I know that I'm 2 hours short glaucoma, I have no idea based on this system. I'd have to subscribe to do that or keep track myself, so then my question becomes, what am I paying $25 for?
But if you pay the $25, then you
Then you have
get to
full-
see everything.
You don't have the.
It's a skeletal system unless you pay the $25.
Yes.
So basically, the system does offer an optometrist mobility, where if they move to another state, that is going to keep track of all their certificates.
No.
No?
We still have to have a license in that state
Okay.
for mobility.
For mobility.
It's just educational tracking.
That's just that's what I was looking for, the
I'm sorry, I
educational.
was-
The educational tracking is still available to them.
It does save you those, as Dr. Wong mentioned, I too have a 20-some odd year archive of, in case somebody asks, and I also have licenses in multiple states, so I keep them all separated out, so it's helpful that way.
Yeah, and are there other systems being introduced?
What do you mean?
Because I think about it, when I have questions about CE and I've gone to a COA meeting, they'll usually be able to generate that for me, although of recent it's been all COPE, so that's less of an issue. But the schools and colleges, they also have some COPE courses, but I can transcript through there. Are we looking at other national programs that are coming down the pipeline, or is this trying to get ahead of the game, or is it just catching up?
Do you mean national programs
Yeah,
that are
I'm a little bit-
submitting
Yeah, I'm
to?
confused.
No, like other, it's a business, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, there are other programs obviously out there that can keep track of continuing education hours, but ours is specifically designed for optometrists and only optometrists. Those other programs can be for any licensing body.
So if I'm hearing you correct, right now you don't have any competition?
They do,
No,
but not
I don't know.
specifically. It's not specifically optometry.
There is.
are other.
I
I don't
mean-
think anyone uses them. Do you know of any?
No, there was a meeting a couple months ago, it seems like, where they were discussing this issue in Dallas. Was that? Was it Chicago?
That was regarding
Dallas.
not OBTracker.
Not OBTracker.
Yeah, so to clarify, the reason why we brought OBTracker here is because it had been discussed in the past as well. In 2013, we had a discussion. The last board meeting, we had a discussion. And OBTracker, the board currently in regulation accepts OBTracker data. That's our verification for the CE. So that's why OBTracker is here. I do believe there's a couple others that that staff is happy to research and try to find out exactly all of the options out there and then provide that to the board as well.
Any other questions from the members of the public?
Has CLA, have you ever considered joining this and paying for all of your members as a member benefit?
Excuse me.
I'm just asking because there's a bunch of other associations.
Yeah, I don't think that's come up as recent of us, yeah.
Do you have interest? So you do track all of your CEs and just through your association, right? And then your member, the doctors can go to you and see their balances.
We generate our own transcripts for our type of C. Dr. Morrison was saying we're also doing some through COPE. So I don't know if you may be able to explain this better as the education committee.
Yeah, having been on the education committee for COA, as well as the academy.
Quick question. No, it's not a problem. I just wanted to say, does anyone have any other questions for Sierra and her presentation? Because we're going into the next agenda item, which is fine. But if anyone has any other questions for Sierra before. Anyone?
I'm gonna leave a bunch of my cards, so you're free to call me or email me with any other questions that you might come up with, and I'll try to get as much numbers, data as I can for you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
They did too. Thank you. All right, now continue.
So most national programs will get COPE approval because if I do have a license in another state, if it's only in California, some states will not take California CE only. So most of us will go through a COPE process just for accreditation, and the speaker or the administrator pays a fee to get that education accredited. And then from there, that then is what is reported, because you also have to have assurances of attendance so that they can't like sign in and then bolt and stay on their phone shopping Amazon. But the reality is there are processes that are in place, and I think most organizations will do that so that we can use our education in multiple areas. So the issue then becomes, obviously this is great benefit from a public standpoint, but what are the fees going to? And when you start to think about it, if I'm having to upload my own fees, then it's like me cleaning my house and then playing a housekeeper. So that becomes my, where is it that this comes? I think it's brilliant because I'm lazy, and to be able to pull that up, I think she gets tired of me calling and say, hey, how much CE did I take at the school this year? Because I also have to do that for my board certification, because I have to have so many hours on that to maintain.
And to answer Rachel's question, I'm not intimately involved with our CE process at COA, but I did talk with the person who manages our educational program, and she had some hesitation and concern about essentially mandating this, requiring that all optometrists use this.
But you currently collect CE credits for your members. So if I'm a member of COA, I can call you and get a printout of my transcript for your
The
courses.
courses we offer, not for necessarily SCCU. Ketchum offers their own courses. They would keep track of that.
Okay.
So, continuing with agenda item number 6, I'm just going to go around and see if anyone else has comments. So we'll start with Sid. Do you have any?
Yes, I do, thank you. Coming from a corporate perspective where we've been down something very similar to this, I'm wondering how we got here. We haven't even established a business case, we haven't done an alternatives analysis, and yet our agenda item is to potentially amend regulations to mandate that we, in essence, require optometrists to pay for a third-party vendor and increase their fees to do so. We haven't even looked internally. We have briefs. And I'm rather surprised that staff then has not brought to us the compatibility with Breeze and all of the extra modules or systems that it has to offer. Maybe there's a way to have us take care of this in the state internally. Maybe there's a way to do a hybrid. We don't know until we bring Breeze into the conversation. What are the costs? What about the people power? If we're going to ask our members to, in essence, pay close to $250,000 in fees going out of the state to a third party, can that money be better used augmenting our own staff to help validate? I don't know, but until we have some analysis before us and we're working off of a presentation on one product, we don't even know if we're going to be voting to mandate this, what kinds of systems are there in play, since it is computer-based and infrastructure-based. What's the cybersecurity looking like? What is our responsibility of a board if we mandate this and put this into a regulation if there's some breach of some kind and personal identifiable information is out there and the board mandated that they use the system? We haven't even heard about what the system, how the infrastructure of this system works. We've had discussion before about raising fees on our optometrists. We're not even looking at raising our own fees for our own board and our own services, but we're quick to all of a sudden have an agenda item where we're going to raise fees for third-party service. Again, I'd like to get some more information here, and instead of voting on whether we're going to mandate and amend through regulation, to step back and perhaps ask our staff through the EO to work with DCA IT to learn more about this system, learn more about our internal capabilities, then bring to the board the cost-benefit analysis so that we're not just responding and reacting so quickly. It's just based on experience that I've had in the past with similar vendor acquisitions and the like, and also working tangentially with IT systems.
So a couple things. How we got here was just the conversations that we've had starting in 2013, the conversation we had at the last board meeting, the fact that OBTracker is already available, the board already through regulation accepts that as validation of CE. So, and I apologize if the agenda item itself was confusing and how it's listed on the agenda, but we wanted to provide the opportunity that if the board wants to discuss even possibly touching the regulation, we wanted to put it on the agenda so the public is aware that that can come up. But the purpose of this discussion was just to start that discussion, to educate the members here who aren't familiar with OBTracker, to show them what OBTracker can do and start that discussion to see where we're going. But we are, and when it comes to considerations with Breeze, I mean, I've been very involved in Breeze since 2010, so I have a pretty good understanding of what Breeze can do so far. But I'm happy to provide an in-depth analysis and work with DCA to provide that, to show all the benefits and any kind of pros and cons, and provide that to the members as well.
I encourage that because your involvement and staff's involvement has been as a user and not as a developer. So we need to hear from them what the system is capable, how from a development standpoint can be built out. Because then the state of California owns that information. What happens if we get a disciplinary hearing, which we do typically 5 or 6 years after someone had some action? We can't even access it, that information, unless we're a member, unless we mandate that every single optometrist is a member. There's a disconnect there. So maybe, again, don't know until DCA IT, but Breeze has not been a part of this conversation until we just brought it up. Again, getting the developer perspective versus a user perspective.
And I could do that, but I do want to say our perspective is very much more than just users, because we are very much involved in the design phase, the configuration stage. We were part of the developers in the system, but we'll definitely provide that information.
Okay, but not for this. And if we had been, we'd see that it is a database for licenses. If it's a database for licenses, it can be a database for CE credits. The validation piece, that's the piece. So let's get this group together to discuss, is it a hybrid again of information flow into our system, or is it hiring onto our staff and have them dedicated? We don't know because we don't have any information in front of us.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, going back to the meeting where we had discussions about this system in the past, I think the opportunity lies in the fact that we're not moving forward in the detailed information that we're getting as a board to be able to move forward in our decision process. We're still at this top level of conversation, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions that I personally have, such as, what is the cost justification? Because it may only be $15 per optometrist. However, we're one of the largest states, if not the largest, as far as the number of optometrists in our state. So we are talking about a lot of money.
Yeah.
In addition to that, as Sid had brought up from the site, we have to also make sure that from a standpoint of transparency and neutrality, that there's not money that's being funneled into this program, whether it's directly or indirectly, that we're not allowed to do. We can't do a full assessment if we don't know those kind of details. So I was really hoping that today our discussions with ARBO were going to be more detailed as far as bringing us more detailed information to help us to make a decision, but I'm not there right now.
Okay.
So I understand the benefits to the program, but I'm just not there as far as us taking such an extreme measure as far as moving forward.
Based on the numbers that were presented, Sarah was saying that the board is auditing 15 licensees per month, is that right?
That's the goal.
That's the goal?
Well, recently, because we've only had one enforcement staff, we're backlogged. But it's roughly 5% that we're able to audit.
If it's 15, then it's about 2.25%.
So the goal is the 5% that we're able to audit. I think in my materials I said roughly 5% or less right now. In the past we were able to do more when we had more staff, and we'll go into the staffing later. But that's roughly what we're looking at, and it's extremely time consuming to do.
So something like OBTracker definitely is a time-consuming measure. The thing I'm a little concerned about that I had no idea of is that there are other entities out there that track CE. So
We can bring
from
that
the way I
information.
found the state works, if you're not doing something with putting out a bid for various options on something like this, I don't think that we could really even consider moving forward with OBTracker unless we know all the other options that are out there.
I like the comprehensive aspect of OBTracker, but I agree with the comments from the other board members about the cost analysis, and I'd like to see if Breeze could actually do very similar work as OBTracker.
Well, this was my second time of hearing about OBTracker. In fact, I think the last time they did share the financial data, but we did not have a healthy discussion that we're having now, and I suspect had we not prompted it by putting the next agenda item on there, we would have listened again, nodded our heads, and moved on. So I'm glad to hear the questions that are being asked, the discussion, and look forward to us exploring a way to assess the optometrists in a way that's helpful to the consumers.
I can see the benefit of OBTracker, and I think for consumer protection, it would be absolutely beneficial for all optometrists to get audited. Just like everyone else is saying, I would like to have more information about just the whole system, and I don't think we can really make a decision until we have more, have more information.
My personal experience with OBTracker has been wonderful and also very frustrating in that every time I tried to access it, I had to pay the doggone $25.
Every time?
Yeah, because I access
Every
it
year.
once every 2 years. And having just done that recently. My other frustration is that I log in and of my 51 hours of CE, it shows 8. So it obviously is not complete at this point, and they're in the process of trying to get it built. It's not at that point yet, so a lot has to take place even in their system for it to work properly. There has to be not only fees paid, and getting everyone on board with that, which I have not been happy about for several years, but also getting all of the CE providers to contribute to that. So that's a huge, huge process. I love the tracking idea. Did not even consider that there might be other vendors or even that Breeze might be able to provide that kind of service for us at a better cost. We don't know, like Sid said. So I really like the idea of looking at the other options. But having experienced OBTracker for several years, there's been a lot of frustration and a lot of pieces have to come together to make something like that work properly.
I mean, one comment that I completely forgot about that agrees with yours. I stopped using OBTracker because they don't upload all of the information because I have multiple licenses. I try to do COPE, right, because everybody takes COPE, but if you don't have that and you're just using different, CE, which is completely valid to use, like COA has it, the schools have it, they don't have it in there. So that is actually that's why I stopped using it. So
It has been exceedingly helpful.
Yeah, I mean,
you
if you
actually
do,
can't see the courses that you've taken, so you can't say track your glaucoma education if you're looking at OBTracker, for example.
I mean, if they haven't, so for example, let's say that I do a COA thing, that it's not a COPE, like that specific COPE regulated thing, it may or may not be in there. If I go online and do, like we allow 20 CE credits that are online, for optometrists to do. If I go to review of optometry and do 10 CE credits over a weekend because I needed to do my last 10, if review of optometry doesn't submit them to OBTracker, I can't see them, nobody can see them, because they're not listed.
So then you're still actually keeping track of your own hours anyway.
Which is why I have 20 years of,
Yes.
sitting in a, so they have to bring those, it has to be better for them to even get the information. So again, that was a good point, completely forgot why I stopped using it, so, yeah. Mark?
I do like that. It sounds what OBTracker, maybe their goals are that or go to one place and you get all of your information. But I am concerned about not being able to, we haven't looked at other sources. I think we should, and I think maybe Breeze would be a place to see what else we can offer. And I am concerned about saving costs, even not having to increase fees again.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at item 6, I see that there's a consideration of a regulation to make this mandatory, and looking at the materials, it didn't dawn on me until I read the fine print of action requested. I agree, any final decision on making it mandatory is very premature. I'm glad Arbo is here because this was a nice educational exercise. I think one thing that might be a no-brainer to me is to allow this board to have access for auditing purposes. I guess maybe that's the purple state option, not requiring.
We had it already. It's part of our membership. It's part of our ARPA membership.
Oh, really? Okay, I don't know. Well,
But it's only as good as the data that's in
Right,
there.
so if the data's not in there, then.
I'm sorry?
If the data is not in there,
Well,
it doesn't, it's
yeah,
not beneficial,
but I guess from an enforcement perspective, if you're investigating or auditing someone, you can go to many sources. If we're auditing a particular optometrist and you go to the tracker and they say their CERs are up to date, boom, the audit's done. If you look at the database and it shows that they're not up to met their requirements, then you can get on the phone and call the doctor and say, hey, it doesn't look like you have enough. Do you have any other evidence? So, I mean, that having access to the system for auditing purposes gets us ahead of where we are right now, it seems to me.
we have it, right, we just don't,
We
we don't
use
utilize
it
it
because
that
the
way.
probability that all the CE for each optometrist that they've taken is all in there is pretty
Very
low.
low.
Because not very many CE courses are uploading their
Unless there's
attendance
only the
codes.
COPE.
Only the COPE ones
The
for
COPE is
sure.
guaranteed. COPE classes are guaranteed, but
Okay.
they don't, that's what she was talking about in terms of
She
trying
gone?
to get.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because on the map, we're a yellow state and are a purple state. So,
I think you got purple on
What's
that.
obsessed with the map?
Oh, got purple.
So-
California will never be a purple state.
I got news for you. We're still very-
so my last day, so we're accessing the tracker for auditing purposes anyway. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we can.
We can't. Well, we should.
For our members.
We should.
But it's not very effective.
But it's not.
I mean, it's something. It's not nothing, right? It's a step in an auditing process.
Mhm.
My last point is this: given what I'm hearing from the board in terms of making this mandatory, I don't see any will to make it mandatory. So I'm wondering, is it even worth asking for all this information for staff to go invest in these resources to look into this? Or is it a waste of time at this point?
I guess, you know, a question for the board to consider based on what you just said is, would you like to make sure that optometrists who are practicing here have all of their CE credits? Because this is a public advocacy kind of thing that, you know, we're discussing in terms of, do you want to make sure that they have their CE? Because, not that I'm encouraging you to audit me, I do have the records, but I've never been audited. As long as I've had a license here, I've never had an audit done here.
Well, I guess my answer to that, and maybe this is a question we can't answer right now, is if there's a problem in our auditing, yes, the tracker is one way of increasing auditing.
Some kind of tracker.
Right.
You know, maybe, so.
Maybe we need to hire more people to do auditing. You know?
Or-
Well, I think that's very costly.
I think that's really costly. I think what we should spend a lot of our energy is trying to figure out a way to, given how technology is, find a way for a system so that we can have our own electronic system that we can track all of our CE so that we can eventually audit all of our optometrists every renewal period. Because right now, since it's so time consuming, very, very few people are getting audited. And I think, and there are people who aren't doing all of their CE. So I think for
There's
consumer
gonna be,
protection,
right?
we want
There's gonna be people who
yeah.
didn't complete it or
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
do the right allocation of what they're supposed to do. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea to do something where we can get comprehensive data, you know, to have it in the system. I think it's a good thing. Whether it's this system or something else is what we're all.
My last question, just rhetorically, is there any other tactic we can use to encourage people to use OBTracker without making it mandatory, so that we can increase the subscription or the use? I don't want to use the term subscription because that implies fees. Encourage doctors to input their system at least without.
Well, you can't input unless you
actually,
subscribe.
I don't think that's right.
Jessica has.
If you take a course that's not COPE approved, that doesn't automatically upload to the OBTracker system, so if you have a paper certificate saying, hey, I did.
Right. If you have a
then-
paper certificate, then you can.
Right, but if you take a course and they're not automatically uploading to the OBTracker system, then somebody has to submit it to OBTracker in order to get it entered.
I get that. So
and then
you
have to
lose that,
subscribe.
right? I understand that's the hurdle, but I'm just saying rhetorically.
We actually already have a subtle encouragement, and that is, because I'll give you an example. So for me, if I'm gonna take a CE out of state, I do actually look to see if it's COPE approved, because I know that in California we'll accept it. So we already in place right now have an encouragement, but it's not a mandatory thing. Are you following me?
I get it, yeah. I mean, it's not mandatory, I'm just thinking out loud in this age of where everything gets digitized.
Right.
Is it gonna happen anyway without us making it mandatory?
Jessica.
When the system that they
system
have
is
gets
right.
better, as it gets better and better, as they have major players like Review of Optometry, she mentioned, they don't have on board yet. As they get more and more CE providers on board, it will have a natural way of being more and more benefit to us. But as she mentioned, they're not there still, so.
And actually also to, I mean, if you look at it from, from an optometry standpoint, I do the same thing. I look for COPE stuff because I have multiple licenses, because I know it will upload automatically. So, it's bothersome that Review of Optometry, which is a major distributor of online and CE courses, doesn't have that. So if you can't get to a CE in person, we do have a vehicle that says you can take CE at home, but like I said, I've got those certificates sitting around. So maybe as they get these other people on board.
So as far as the outreach portion and to educate the optometrists of OBTracker and do more encouragement to OBTracker, regardless of how this conversation goes, staff's implementing more encouragement through the audit process, because right now we're revamping the audit process right now just based on the current resources that we have. And one of the things we're doing is redoing the audit letter that goes out to the optometrist, because right now it essentially is saying you've been selected for an audit, you can now send us your proof of 50 CE, and they'll mail it in to us. What we're looking at is changing that template for them to be able to identify if they are utilizing OBTracker, then to check a box, give us their OBTracker number, then we can go in and we would tell the optometrist that they don't have to submit anything if everything is in there. So then they're recognizing that availability exists. So we're getting that network out, and that's because that's in reg that we can already accept them.
Well, that's an interesting statement, because the more audit letters we send out saying that, the more people are going to be going to OBTracker. So
yeah,
it's another incentive or way of pushing the online
right,
solution.
without requiring it. And then if they don't, then they would have to submit the certificates to us directly.
What are the other boards do? Dentistry, chiropractic, some of the boards that are, not as big as the medical board.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can do the research and get back to you on that.
Okay, so I like the point about the staff time in terms of asking for this financial data before we're even ready to go down that road. I do really think Breeze, the state spent God knows how many billions of dollars on that program. We are the home of the Silicon Valley. We should be able to look in-house. I'm against mandating this for optometrists. I think that if it's a good product and an optometrist wants to use the product, they should absolutely do it. We should encourage them to consider it, but to mandate it, I just don't agree with that. If we do choose to go down the route of looking at possibly mandating it, before I would even entertain that, I'd like to see an audited financial statement from ARBO. I'd like to see their most recent IRS 990 form. I did go online, and the most recent I could pull was 2014, and the numbers that she was talking about they didn't match up. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see what the budget is for this program. And I'd also, we are the big dog. To Glenn's point, I mean, or Dr. Troy, I don't know who said it, if we're at 8,000 optometrists, we are the big dog for any organization. I look at this as a contract as well, and are we even allowed to enter into a contract with a business that is not even based here in California? So those are questions that I'd like to have DCA come, and I'd like to make sure DCA is included in the loop. It seems to me that maybe they weren't. So to have the IT department from DCA to come and make a presentation on what they can do in terms of in-house, I think that should have happened before we even had this presentation. And I would like to know, A, how other boards do this. I'd like to also know what other availabilities are there in the market. I mean, if we can do an eye exam on an iPhone, I can guarantee there's other companies looking at how to do CE credits the same way. I don't think we should mandate it to one company. We need to see what else is available. So those are my at this point, I think it's an interesting program. I think that, but your comments of I'd like to hear from other optometrists who aren't on the board, who may have or may not have used the program. I just think this is so premature to put this on an agenda saying that we're looking at mandating it for optometrists.
Since I'm not on the board, this isn't the first time this process has been around, and I think it was alluded to earlier. This board has discussed it for at least, I'm going to say 5 years or so. at each step, it's a little further along than where it needs to be, but communication has been less than ideal. There are features that she talked about that have not been communicated to us as an end user of utilizing this system, none the least of which was when it was first presented, here's your subscription fee, and if you want these bells and whistles, you subscribe. And other than that, it was just a number that we get. Now it's being linked, so every student gets an OBTracker number, and their state board examinations are kind of linked to that. So it's kind of getting them into a system early enough. I think it's brilliant. I think this is where we need to go. However, it's not very well developed at this point, just each step of the way. And I think as a board, especially looking at the patient's perspective as well as the practitioners, you don't want it so onerous that the doctor's spending all their time logging their education and not being able to provide the quality care. But in that same vein, you want to make sure that there are some assurances of patient protections. And so coming up with a system, and ideally, especially from a staff standpoint, I think you'd want to know, what is it going to make your life easier? Because at some point, your board is going to term out, and not thinking about today's solution, but where are we going? What's going to make that easier? And if there's something in-house that exists, that certainly makes a lot of sense. But it can't be so onerous that it's problematic for the practitioner, because then you lose the benefit of being able to centralize everything.
I would like to make one amendment to what Rachel stated. In my opinion, it's not premature. We can't have this discussion unless it's placed on the agenda. So that's why it's first the presentation and then the discussion. Otherwise, we would have done what we did previously, was heard the presentation, and then we wouldn't have been able to have the discussion.
But the agenda is to consider mandating it.
Possible.
It's open enough to, we didn't want to limit that, but we wanted the possibility, if that's where the board wanted to go, we had to put it on the agenda to provide that opportunity.
But providing the opportunity without having any financial data was a little, but that's fine. I'm glad we're having the discussion. I just think that if you're asking for board members to vote on mandating something and a fee, that we should have at least been given the financial data that we didn't receive. But I'm glad that we're having the conversation.
A couple of things, members. I couldn't go on a meeting without being quiet for too long. So part of the agenda is I'll say my responsibility, because I, in consultation with the executive officer, wanted to make sure that they had enough room if in fact, during the agenda, if in fact the board wanted to go this way. It certainly was no representation that we were tipping our hand, or that's the way the board wanted to go. It was really to preserve the room if the board wanted to go that way. So that if there's some confusion, or there's a connotation, denotation problem with the agenda, then that's my responsibility. I would suggest, though, as the board talks about the effect of optometrists and the other things, that it considers its consumer protection obligation here. Because one of the things that I would think the best possible scenario would be, if you think about it, an audit is after the fact, right? So the person, we've already said, we're going to go ahead and renew your license, even though, and I'm just thinking hypothetically, that a licensee may have been less than forthright that they have acquired the required CE. So the best possible thing is, you may want to instruct the executive officer and her staff to do, is look for a mechanism by which, whether it's an adjunct to whatever Arbo or another competitor has, built in the module with Breeze, which is how people renew, that at that instantaneous spot where somebody says, hey, I'm eligible for renewal, we go out and check to make sure that you actually have the CE. That way we don't have to rely on an after-the-fact audit, we know up front. To me, that would be the ultimate consumer protection mechanism, because you're saying, okay, we've checked, you're valid, you're good for renewal. Rather than this, okay, well, you said you're good. I think as Dr. Turetzky pointed out, we're gonna build a net to catch 5%. The other 95% have already went down the stream. We've taken their word for it. Optometrists, I'm sure, are very upright, moral citizens, but there could be those one bad apple like me that said, oh yeah, I got that CE, and and maybe I didn't. So as you direct, I'm presuming you're going to direct the executive officer and her staff to do something, get more data, conduct some sort of analysis. It seems logical to me that one thing you could do is say, would there be a way through adjunct or standalone or whatever to have that renewal decision made prior rather than after? Because that to me would be the ultimate consumer mechanism. So with that, I'll be quiet.
Mark, you got a comment?
Yes. So as I sit here now, I'm inclined not to make this mandatory, but I would be interested in hearing later other alternatives to encourage the digitization process, similar to what Kurt has said, that we can move in that direction. So that's, I think, something useful staff can work on. If the item ever comes back for serious consideration to make it mandatory, I would suggest that staff look to the records of these other states that have made it mandatory and see what kind of reports and analysis and ideas they've considered and their discussions. This idea of continuing education for professions is not a new issue. Lawyers, doctors, we all have to certify our CE. There must be other examples of how other professions are trying to use the digitization process to enforce the CE requirements. I know as lawyers, we just have pieces of paper, we just file them, we just certify we've complied, and the state relies on the audit process to make sure we've done it. I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but other professions, I'm sure, other regulatory boards of professions have probably looked at this and may have other solutions.
I have an additional comment. To add to what Mark is saying, if we do decide to begin to address the audit process, as Kurt had mentioned, to be more, instead of a net catching, I'd also want to know for those audits that we do what the data is. So of the audits that we end up doing, how many providers are being caught not being compliant. So things like that I think would be important.
I think some of that information is in our sunset report. There's a section on CE, and I think it even says the stats on that of in the last 4 years, how many have been audited, what the results were from those audits.
Okay, good, thanks. And then the second thing, I just want to make a more broad point, and this is kind of a separate but attached point, that is, again, this goes back to the importance of our participation as part of the ARBO organization, and to make sure that we as a board continue to support the idea that we are a part of that organization, that we need to be in attendance, we need to be able to provide feedback about programs that might be things that we want to be involved in. And in the past, I know that was an opportunity. We were not even attending meetings.
Right.
And so just reinforcing the importance of our continued participation with ARBO.
So I just have a comment. I'm sort of viewing this maybe a little bit differently. For me, the mandated piece is really the CE hours. I mean, you're mandated to do CE no matter what. Doctors, optometrists, everything. I see this as more of making it a better system for you to enforce the CE, to make sure that we're not renewing licenses that should not be renewed. I see it in that perspective, and I think Breeze is a really good way to do that, because if, again, like what Kurt was pointing out, if when you go to your renewal, it automatically kicks back and says, I'm sorry, you're 5 hours short, that seems like the ultimate consumer protection.
Yeah.
So honestly, as a lawyer, I would really like a system where I could just enter in, oh, I went to this class, oh, I took the, I did this online, oh, I attended the McJordan, whatever, all day. I would actually welcome that, because I have files for 15 years of CE records, and I haven't thrown them all away. So I see it, but if you're going to make the recording of your CE hours mandatory, I'd like to see it through the Breeze. It just feels like someone mentioned a disciplinary action. But if you're going to institute a disciplinary action,
it feels safer to use state protected information.
So, kind of created sort of, okay, so when you're done with your comment, I've sort of created a motion for what to
Okay.
direct staff, so.
You know, in listening to the discussion, you know, if we really want to think outside the box and talking about the state bar, I went on Dental Board's website, they don't really have any kind of system. You look at Med Board. This is primed for a project of these boards with DCA to utilize what we've already invested as a state into Breeze, to bringing in compliance all these other state boards. And we could be a leader in saying, this is something the state of California should be doing. It would save resources for not just us, but other boards. I think it's a great consumer protection for all consumers, regardless if you're going to see an attorney or a doctor or a dentist or a chiropractor. But I think I would love to see us take a leadership role in reaching out to DCA and working with them to figure out how can we make this a benefit to the entire state, to all of the all the consumer protection boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs. It could be a prototype for other states to consider it as well.
All right, so I've scribbled down a motion, which I'm trying to piece together here. If we could have someone possibly entertain, we can amend this motion to make it worded better, but a motion to direct staff to explore multiple options to allow the State Board of Optometry, California State Board of Optometry, to better audit CE obtained by optometrists prior to renewal of their license, including how other boards are currently utilizing the same process, exploring Arbo, Breeze, and other potential electronic systems, including applicable financial data, and the financial financial costs involved with implementing such a system before.
Just amend it just a little bit, besides the audit, a system that collects the CE and centralizes the CE coursework.
Let me see that. Audit and collect?
Yeah,
CE,
audit
okay.
and collect.
Someone want to make that motion?
I move.
Okay, someone want to second that motion?
Second.
I have a question before I go.
We need to have a
No, we're
comment.
gonna have a discussion anyway after.
Okay.
So, moved second. Okay, so now discussion wise.
Sure. I'd like a list of options and some pros and cons. However, I don't necessarily need Arbo's financial information, you know, the tax forms. At this stage,
Well, leaving it open, right, because you requested it, so I don't want to shut that down.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I mean, I think there's other steps
Yeah.
to do, and then, but if you, however you want to do it, but I agree with you, we don't need it now.
Yeah.
If we're going to get to a point where it's going to come back on the agenda that we're going to
Sure,
mandate,
sure.
then I'd like to see. the
right.
financial.
So, I mean, in terms of when you use the term financial information, I know costs, you know, ballpark costs and things like that are important, but I don't want staff, you know, tracking down minutia. This is going to be a thought piece, a thought discussion. So that's my intent in voting for the motion.
Okay, so I accept your friendly amendment, what I just said. I would strike that little piece that I did for Rachel's request, so we can do that later. So I'll take your friendly amendment, I'm fine with that. So any other discussion from any other board members?
I just want to make sure that we are allowing the latitude for our EO and staff to take the time that's necessary. I don't feel that this is a rush type thing
No, it's
necessarily,
not.
so I just wanted to make
It's
sure
been going on
that
for
there
the
was
entire time you and I have
understanding.
been on the board, so we're not rushed.
Okay.
I didn't put a time limit on it.
And I'd like the exploration to be in a way that we pursue Rachel's suggestion that we are a leader in this and working with DCA, because it shouldn't be limited just to this
Do you want
consumer.
me to put that in this motion?
No.
Or-
Just-
Just a
I
comment.
said in the exploration
Okay.
portion, that
All right.
thing, yeah.
Ruby?
And I'm sure I'm very premature about this, but I just sort of, in the design of a program like this, perhaps in the future, I know I'm very premature, but we're considering talking about CEs for opticians too. So just to have that, but I know that we can't talk about it at this point.
Well, until we get
Right.
to that, because we don't even have that yet.
Exactly.
It's not happening, so. yeah.
Thanks.
Any public comment? All right. So,
You're like cold. You're like,
it is cold in here.
coat on.
That's why I always wear coats today.
Mhm.
It's freezing.
I did too.
I put you there to keep you awake.
I know.
Then I have a wrap on my.
Any public comments? No? Okay, so then I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Rachel?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Ruby? Aye. Dr. McIntyre? Dr. Wong? Dr. Wong?
Oh, aye, sorry.
Aye. I vote aye. Maria?
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky? Dr. Calhoun?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. I will rewrite this. Yeah, I'm gonna take a little break. I'll rewrite this for you. Okay. I wrote it here. All right, so we'll take like a 10-15 minute break.
I'll go through my wrap.
You sure?
I'm just gonna go with you.
It's okay.